Okay, as I just was going through the previous video, I realized I did something here, and I don't know why I didn't catch it. We got ray tracing and backdrop. We actually need this to be ray tracing and spherical map to make that show up. And I don't know what I was thinking. It is very late at night, so pardon me. Let me do a little render here to show you what that looks like. And we might need to balance that a little bit, bring it down. Okay, there we go. And then the other thing you can do until we get our lighting set is just try this as a spherical map for both surfaces. Like that. And let's make sure these balance out. That's good. And let's bring this, I'm going to bring the specularity down a little bit. Might be a little too much. Because the gloss is so low, we have a very wide hotspot. So you need to be careful with that. Okay. And I'm going to bring this up a little bit and then bring this down to about 50. Yeah, it's a little more reasonable. S to save. Do an F9. And that looks a little bit better. Still could be a little bit shinier, but we'll get there. I want to get our lighting set. So I'm going to press 4 to get to my perspective view. And we'll use our left bracket to kind of change that grid a bit. Getting a little closer. And then I'll choose my light. And you press this guy right here. I'll bring the light forward. And we can zoom into it. Okay. I'm going to press P for light properties. And I'm going to change this light from a distant light to an area light. Okay, and you can see with 9.6, we've got a bunch of lights to choose from. Photometric or IES lights, and you can actually download an IES file. It's a light profile. It's almost like a preset. I'm not going to necessarily do this in this course, but it's something you can experiment with on your own. Just go do a search online for IES lights, and you'll be able to download some profiles, load those in, and almost have some presets, which is kind of nice. We've got a dome light, which is actually really nice. I've used this for architecture, which is kind of neat. You can cover a whole scene with that. It's kind of fun. For this, we're going to stick with an area light, though. My favorite. Shadows are going to be ray traced, so that's fine. And the light, we're going to make it just a little bit warmer. Like that. Okay. And intensity at 100, we're going to bring that down just a little bit. Area lights used to be really, really hot, but they're not as much anymore. And Shift H for size. I'm actually going to size up this light, which will give us a softer shadow. Okay. Now, I'm not going with a typical 3-point lighting setup on this. We're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to do kind of a Jill Greenberg sort of photography type of setup. I'm going to increase my grid a little bit here, press the right bracket a couple times, and then the period key. And you know what? I'm going to press D, and I'm going to take my grid type and turn it off. Because I have that ground plane on there, I don't really need that grid. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this light and we're going to pull it back kind of over here like this. And we'll do an F9, see how that looks. Now, if you remember the previous render, we had that hard default distant light. Just by changing this light to an area light, it does slow things down, but look at how much nicer that lighting is. Nice soft shadows, nice fall off in the back, and this is why I like using that large, long plane all the way to the back. Okay, so that's the first light. I'm going to pull this over to the side a little bit more, like this. Press the Y key for rotate, and we're going to rotate it down. And I think that might work okay. Next thing I'm going to do, to the Items tab, go under More, you can mirror. And what am I mirroring? The selected item. And I'm going to mirror it across the X. And if you see, I've got an exact duplicate. Okay, because I want that even light from both sides. Now, I might need to change the intensity, but for now, what I'm going to do is Shift S. I'm going to save my scene as a second, well, be a first version, but I still have the original. And we'll take a look, see how this looks. Now, I might need to bring both intensities down because we have two. But we just want to give this a nice studio appearance. And what this is going to do is give us these nice reflections on both sides of the light, or a little bit more shading. It's also going to fill in the center of the bottle a lot nicer for us, helping give that frosted look. Okay? And it also allows the client to see the product. Really pulls it out. Now we could put some light behind it as well. Might not be necessary at this point, but when we move to our final beauty shot, we're going to. For this one, I want to get the surfaces set up, and then we'll set up a different scene for it. Okay, so let's save that scene again. I think the intensity is okay, actually. So let's come here to our surface editor and go to our floor. And we're going to open up the floor. And for this, let's give this sort of a bluish teal color. Okay. And then we're going to make this somewhat shiny, about 25%. And we're also going to make the floor reflective, about 15%. And that means I should bring this down to about 85%. So too much reflection, too much diffuse, the scene is too bright. And for its environment, it should be ray traced and backdrop. Okay, so it's reflecting the environment. And that way, when we do a render, it's going to reflect up into the glass bottle. And you can see as we add these things, everything gets just a little bit slower, a little bit slower. But for a beauty shot like this, it's worth it. You definitely want that. You want to pull out all the bells and whistles because it's that kind of shot. Okay, so nice reflection on the floor. Now you can go in and add a blurry reflection to that. But I think this looks nice and clean this way. So we'll save the scene, press S. Now, back to the glass bottle now that we have a floor and some lighting. We'll go back to the bottle. It's 40% reflection. This time, we're going to come back to ray trace and spherical map. And what that's going to allow us to do is reflect this nice environment we've created as well as these reflections. And just for grins and giggles, let's bring this diffuse down to 20 and bring reflection to 80. And just see what happens. It's funny, I get people that email me, what would happen if I punched this in and changed this to this value? And all the time they took to email me, you could actually just try it out. So I highly, highly encourage people to experiment, try different values, try crazy values. Don't just change it 5, 10%. Go to the opposite extreme. See what happens. And what's neat about doing it this way is that the cap now reflects some of the bottle. The bottle will reflect some of the floor, but not as much just because it's transparent. Okay, has a nice look to it. Now, we'll take care of the noise and everything on the final render, but for right now, the light is actually emitting through there quite nicely. Almost too much, actually. So I think I'm going to go in to the light properties, and we have 2 area lights. We can rename these, and we'll call this key 1 and key 2. And let's bring these down just maybe to about 60%, see what happens. And again, you want these to be identical. You want even light on both sides. We'll do one more render, and then we'll move on to our next video and continue with the surfacing on the bottle. And I'm going to show you how to actually put wording on there very easily. We're going to jump back into Photoshop and create that. But we're getting some real nice look on the cap for a nice brushed metal. I think the glass is working really well with the bevels and the refraction values. I still didn't bring the refraction back down. I still left it up high at 1.6. We need to put a little bit of liquid in there and the little pump stick. But overall, this is looking pretty good. Now, again, this is not anti-aliasing, not anti-aliased, I should say. It doesn't have noise reduction on. So you're going to see a lot of that from the blurry reflection and from the area lights. But by the time we're done, I'll show you how to clean all that up. So for now, let's move on into the next video, and we'll talk about putting text on here and really getting this glass surface to look the way we want.